Charleston County Criminal Justice Coordinating Council has a new director after founding director Kristy Danford retired last year. Today, I talk one-on-one with new director Ellen Steinberg for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Judge Ellen Steinberg, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you very much. It's really good to see you again.
Oh, likewise. Needless to say, you are director of the Charleston County Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, and you have been since last year, I believe.
That is correct.
Okay. What is the biggest difference from last year to right now, and obviously as you being the director of this particular organization?
There are lots of differences. First of all, the first director, Kristy Danford, sensational, a phenomenal individual who birthed this into where we are today. I had the privilege of stepping in last year. Privilege and responsibility. Pick it up and move us forward. And it has been a really wonderful year. We're doing great things. We have, I've kind of built a new team. We have a full-time dedicated research manager that has made a significant difference. We're all about data. She has come in and she has taken the data. She has looked at it. She has worked it. And I tell her, if she can take data and explain it in such a way that I understand, we're golden. And that's really what we're doing.
Wow, that's amazing. I know that the Charleston County Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, in 2020 released this strategic plan outlining key initiatives for the next 3 years. The plan was developed on the heels of the CJCC's efforts in 2019, that is, to engage and involve over 1,200 community members in setting the plan's course. So what key initiatives have developed results for the council so far?
So taking from that last strategic plan, we really have implemented everything. I'm incredibly proud to say it's been started, continued. We have dedicated what we call work groups, which are different groups to study the data. Data such as case processing, data such as divert and deflect. And this is really what not only are we good at, but we're getting a whole lot better at. And that's where I get excited. We're taking this information and we're using it to move forward, to lift it up and to bring it to, our community's attention. And when I say community, when we work together in these work groups, we have people representing law enforcement. We have people representing the solicitor's office. We have public defenders. We have the different agencies that are involved. The criminal justice system is a complex, large system. And it's dynamic, which means it's constantly changing. Right? So, and I'm going to say CJCC because to say the whole title is just too much of a mouthful for all of us. But it's true. We really strive to pay attention to where we are, to look at what have we done, what's changed, what are the trends, what are we going to do with these trends?
Yes, ma'am. So where are you all right now as a council?
So I'm so glad you asked me that. Right now, we are working like wild over here in the office because today is October 4th. On October 20th, we are hosting a conference. This is going to be really the first of its kind conference. It's the CJCC, and we're also working with the Charleston Forum. And the conference is a statewide conference. We're looking to, I actually have the agenda right here to talk to you about it. I'm so glad you asked me. We're really taking a view from above, bringing it down to us and bringing in experts in the fields for conversation. This is not going to be like a classroom type conference. This is going to be panel discussions. So, for instance, one of our presentations is understanding system intercepts and opportunities for deflection and diversion. That sounds like a mouthful, right? What it really means is we have Stacy Rowell from the South Carolina Department of Mental Health, and she's going to talk about what we call crisis care continuum, looking at what we can do to deflect those people who have, issues such as mental health, such as, drug disorders. That do they really belong in the criminal justice system? Do they belong in jail? Or what can we do to deflect them? We also, part of that panel discussion is a woman named Elise Kratzer. She comes from policing research analyst with the RTI International, and she's bringing in data. She is going to tell us about what's called the Carolina Cohorts Project, where they have taken data in North Carolina and also out of Rock Hill, South Carolina, looking at what are the calls that are coming in to law enforcement. Are these calls that need to go? Do they need to be picked up and taken into jail? Or is there someplace else for them? And moderating this panel is going to be our own Jim Lake, who is the 911 coordinator and director for Charleston County Consolidated Emergency Communications Center. I'm telling you all of this just to give you an idea just how robust and rich these panels are going to be.
And Judge, so let me ask you, we are obviously in 2023 and we're going to head into 2024 in the next, 2.5 months.
Tomorrow, right?
Yeah, these days. Well, what type of calls are law enforcement getting these days? Is law enforcement getting these days? And how many of those calls are actually being diverted elsewhere?
So I'm not going to have those numbers at hand. Each law enforcement agency, they track those calls. I can tell you that here in Charleston County, we work really hard, and the law enforcement agencies step up because everyone recognizes that not everybody needs to go to jail. If you have somebody who is having a mental health crisis and they're, having a breakdown on the street, what do? Our first response is to call 911. That's historically what we've always done. The law enforcement is that go-to agency, but law enforcement is really recognized that they can't be everything for everyone that's going on. They're not equipped to deal with mental health issues. However, they know who to call. They know what to do, and that's really something that we want to lift up and talk about at this conference. And that's only one thing we're going to talk about at the conference. Also, we're going to talk about community engagement and reduction of violence. So I'm going to make the assumption that everyone is concerned about violence in their own community. Does that concern you? Right. I mean, it's all about us. What's happening in my own backyard? How is this going to affect me? What can we do? And we have 3 different people talking about that. One is an analyst with the City of Columbia Police Department. He's going to talk about what's called geospatial analytics. We also have someone else who is from the director, who's from the Office of Violent Crime Prevention in the City of Columbia. And we also have someone who's the founder and CEO of Serve and Connect. And the 3 of them are going to talk about why the community needs to step up and how the community can step up, help each other, help the agencies, and help law enforcement to pay attention and begin to address violence in our communities.
So, Judge, locally speaking, how exactly is this community engaging with law enforcement to reduce violence in their neighborhoods?
Well, I would say that each law enforcement agency has been doing outreach. I mean, I would love to tell you what the City of Charleston is doing, what North Charleston is doing, what Mount Pleasant is doing. I don't, I can't monitor that, but I do pay attention, and I'm sure most of us also do pay attention to what type of outreach are they doing. And, we see just from local news, from the local Post and Courier, that they are doing outreach, that this is something I believe everybody recognizes that it takes all of us working together to move that needle, to move what's happening in our communities. I would say, it's all about me. And I mean that generally, that when we're talking about what's happening, each person is going to individualize it and say, how is that going to affect me? What's in it for me? Well, what's in it for you, for me, and anyone else who's going to listen is that each of us needs to step in, take responsibility, to be present, and to speak up, to participate. That's how we can make a difference.
And Judge, where should the needle be moved when it comes to outreach with law enforcement?
Where should the needle move? That's a really interesting question. I would think that, each community is going to have a different response. So I would suggest that one of the things that we in the CJCC look at and think about is, how does our community feel? So you just kind of helped me lead into something else I wanted to tell you about. You referenced in 2019, we did a community engagement. We did outreach to the community. We had over 1,000 people respond. Well, we're gearing up. On top of everything else, we're gearing up, and in January 2024, we're going to launch community engagement dialogues again. And it's going to be similar to what we did in 2019, but it's going to be different because we learned from what we did in 2019, which was outstanding. It was excellent. So now all we can do is do better. In 2024, we're looking to really and truly reach out to the community and ask these questions that you're asking me.
Now, when it comes to that dialogue, what's the biggest difference from 2019 to right now?
I think that really a lot of the differences is how our society has changed. Our community has changed, and I'm not an expert in this. I'm just a normal citizen like you, but I believe that, that period of time that we call that COVID world, I think it's had an effect on everybody. So 2019, we never knew what COVID was. Who ever heard of COVID? And then all of a sudden, 2020, 2021, everything changed. There were shutdowns. I mean, we all remember we were afraid to go out. Because of that, the numbers, crime numbers, plummeted. The jail was reduced to, 646 people at one point, which is the lowest we've ever seen. But that was the result of this worldwide pandemic. Coming out of that, people are kind of stretching and getting back involved and dealing with the effects of 2020 and 2021, of COVID, of how it stopped, what it did to the schools, what it did to us at work. Whoever knew work from home was going to be so popular? So when we look at what we're doing going forward in 2024, Quintin, I think we're looking at a completely different society in terms of what they know, what they've learned, and what they're looking for going forward.
So what have you all learned from 2020, 2021, and 2022?
We've learned that the numbers, we're looking now at the numbers, and the jail population is slowly inching up again. And I'm not your numbers girl, right? We're gonna establish that. But I do pay attention. And we are noticing that there is a slow creeping of the numbers. We also know that across this country there is a slow creeping of the numbers? Is it because there's an increase in crime? Not necessarily. That doesn't make sense. That when you see the numbers in the jail rise, you would immediately think there's an increase in crime, there's an increase in violent criminal activity. The numbers really are not showing that. What the numbers are showing us is that we kind of got used to those really low numbers during COVID world. And I've heard it said that we're looking at what's called a reset, that this is the new reality. And it is what it is. This is what we're working with.
Did law enforcement have enough time to prepare for this reset in your mind?
Did this country have enough time to prepare for the resets? You ask a question, and I think that it's really a process. I think that for many people, they're still trying to figure out, where do we go next? What do we do next? I believe in our law enforcement that they are doing what they can do. I also recognize that they're struggling with the same realities that every agency around is. I mean, how do you attract people? How do you keep people in? You bring them into your agency, you educate them, and they move on, right? I mean, this is pretty much what I would imagine you're hearing from everyone you talk with.
Yes, ma'am. What are those realities that they're currently struggling at the county jail when it comes to the increase of the jail population?
I think that they're struggling with the reality of making sure that they have enough deputies. I know that the Charleston County Sheriff's Office works really hard. I know that their chief deputy who oversees the jail works really hard. He works with us here in the CJCC, and they're doing. I mean, I'm not in the Charleston County Sheriff's Office, but from my perspective, they're doing well. They really are. It's a struggle across the board for our law enforcement agencies because, as we were saying earlier, historically we're trained, if something goes wrong, if you have a problem, pick up that phone, call 911. They can't be everything for everybody all the time. And I think that's a kind of a reality. That's a new reality that we are all working to better define. It goes back to what I was saying before. If somebody has a mental health crisis, do we want to put them in jail? I don't think so.
And Judge, let me ask you, what are the new system trends that you all are looking at when it comes to obviously what's going on right now with the new reset?
Some of the trends, the critical trends that we're paying attention to, Quintin, have to do with what we call case disposition. And that, when I'm talking about that, somebody's arrested. When someone's arrested in Charleston County or anywhere in South Carolina, they must have a bond hearing within 24 hours of that arrest. From the point of that arrest until their case is resolved, that's what we call case disposition time. It's always been a little bit of a struggle for every circuit, for courts, for the solicitor's office to move their cases in a timely manner. That's just the reality of it. It's always been a bit of a struggle. On top of that, put in that during COVID, courts shut down, literally. I mean, we would have, we would have emergency hearings, but otherwise there was no court. And then gearing back and trying to get started, so that people felt comfortable coming into court, or people felt comfortable going into a jury trial. Jurors are made up of our community. Community members were reluctant to step in and to step out. So you had already cases pending for trial for disposition, guilty pleas, whatever it would be. On top of that, you add really court shutdown for how long? A year and a half, maybe? Slowly getting back up. And that's what's going on now. I will tell you that the solicitor's office and the public defender's office, and I say this because this is data that we do track, have been doing an unbelievable job moving cases. I mean, I've never seen them move cases as much as they have this past year. It's what we call a clearance rate, and it's over 100%. I think it was 113% the last time I saw the numbers, which is outstanding. I give kudos to all those lawyers because it is such hard work. There is still that many cases pending.
And what was the clearance rate in 2020 versus right now?
Oh my goodness. I don't even know how to pull that number up for you right now. But all I can tell you is that the clearance rate we're at now is higher than we've ever seen. So, and that's really good news. And these are those little wins that I think it's important we pay attention to. They're very hard jobs, and they are doing it. And here I go. I'm going to go back to my conference coming up on October 20th. That's also something that we're going to be looking at. We have people talking about, what are the numbers? How are cases moving? What's being done? And again, because everybody in the criminal justice system is a piece of it. Everyone, no matter what your job is, if you are working in the criminal justice system, you are part of this really complex, big system. So we want everyone to try to, pay attention and let's work together and move it forward.
So, and I'm using the words of Helen Hill, but what is the law enforcement secret sauce to actually move these cases very quickly?
For law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am. I should say the public defenders and the solicitor's office. Pardon me.
Yeah, I know just from my own personal history, law enforcement does their job and they just kind of dump it over into the solicitor's office, right? Here's my case, y'all. Do what you can do. The solicitors, Solicitor Wilson has really been paying attention to how those cases move. She's been working with her team. She's got an office full of really good lawyers. And I'll say the same for the public defender's office. We have a new public defender there, Cameron Glazer, and she too. I mean, they work nonstop to move the cases. And that's really a lot. A piece of what it takes is a lot of attention, a lot of working through it. But the reality is, and I'm sure they all recognize and would say it to you also, the reality is, as much as they're doing, which is, again, it's a heroic amount of work, it's still not quite enough. It's not enough to really reduce that backlog, that pending cases.
What tools and resources will help them move these cases more quicker?
Some of the things that would be helpful is if Charleston County had more terms of court. When I say a term of court, that means how many judges, how much court is going on. That would be big for Charleston County to have more circuit court judges to help hear the cases, because in circuit court for a judge, it's not all about jury trials. There's going to be motion hearings. There's going to be all sorts of other hearings that come up, motion hearings, bond reconsiderations. There's going to be meetings. What can we do? How do we move this case? So for one judge, it is a tremendous amount of work.
And Judge Steinberg, I was just thinking about this as you were just talking a few seconds ago. But now that you are the director of the Charleston County Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, what did you believe that you missed as a judge that you're just now seeing as the director of this organization?
What did I miss when I was sitting on the bench?
Yes, ma'am.
Um, that's I have to think about that. I'm not sure if I'd said to you before, but those 9 years on the bench, it was a privilege, and I say that with absolute sincerity. It was a tremendous learning experience and learning not only about the system, because when you work inside the system, what do they call it? You learn how the sausage is being made, right? Um, and that was fascinating. But more importantly, I learned about our community, about our people. I learned how important it is to listen to people. People want to be heard. They want to be recognized. They want to be acknowledged. I think that if anything, when I look back, I say that I hope that I did that. I hope that I'm doing that even now as the director of the CJCC, that when people want to talk to me, that I'm paying attention and I'm listening to them, because that it's not about what's going on in my head. It's really more about what's going on in your head. What are you telling me? What is it that I need to understand and recognize?
And what else this council? Well, what else does this council want to understand and recognize when it comes to the issues here in this community?
We want to be responsive. So when I talk about coming up in January 2024, stepping into the community again to have our dialogues, I want us to be that CJCC that not only are we listening to you and we're taking in what you're saying, and again, it's listening. When you say something, it's not for me to say, well, I believe part of it, I don't believe part of it. Absolutely not. Everything you say to me, that is what you believe, so that is the truth. And it is our responsibility to take what the community says to us and move it forward. It's not going to be a one and done kind of situation. It's actually going to be ongoing. Because if you tell me something in January, you probably will have something else to say to me 5 months later, right? Because you'll have experiences. You'll have the opportunity to think about it. And I really believe that our responsibility, our job as part of Charleston County even, is listening to what the community says and how can we do better? How can we take what your concerns are, address them, and try to make better? So that's really what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to October 20th when we have this conference. I'm going to join us. I'll send you the information so you can register. People need to register because we need to keep count. And then, launching our next dialogues in January. That's just a small piece. Lots of really good things going on. Small team, lots of energy here.
And Judge, when you go around town, what concerns stick out in your mind right now?
And for me, my concerns are when I see what the data is, and when I see that the most frequently charged crime across all Charleston County is illegal possession of a firearm. That's it. And unfortunately, we have no surprises here. Anyone who's paying attention to what's happening in the news, what's happening, how many times are we reading that shots fired, someone's shot? Tragically, people are murdered. For me, I think that's the violence, the guns, the illegal possession of guns is really something we need to pay a lot of attention as a community.
And from 2022 to right now, how many illegal firearm possessions have there been in this county?
Again, I can't give you a number count, but I can tell you that based on our data for the last 3 years, that is the most significantly, most charged more often than any other crime. And it has always been part of those top 10 crimes that are being charged in the community, but it's right up there, number one.
So what are the other 9 charges that are on that top 10 list?
You want to get into the data? Listen to you. All right, let me see what I can pull up for you. Okay. So, DUI first. That's DUI first. Here we are. We have Uber, we have Lyft, we have everything you need. You don't need to be out there driving and, drinking and driving. That's number 2 frequently charged. And even without looking, I can tell you number 3 is trespass. Right, trespass. What? Let me ask you, Quintin, why do you think trespass would be the 3rd most frequently charged crime in this county? No idea.
Yeah.
Let's think about what's going on with affordable housing in Charleston County. I don't know if this is a result of what happened during COVID. There was a moratorium on evictions during COVID. Because of that, there's been a kind of a bounce of a lot of the rentals out here. The rentals have increased. We've had a population increase. We have people who cannot find a place to live. And that's where we see the trespass numbers go up. And I think, those 3, when I talk about the top 3 most frequently charged crimes in Charleston County, we have illegal possession of a firearm. We have DUI first, and we have trespass. And these are all I believe these are all products of our society, our community, that we can address. We can work on resolving.
And are these top 10 crimes a result of COVID, or, as you just mentioned, society and the trends that are going on right now?
So I think that it's a combination of all of that.
Okay.
They've always been part of that revolving number of frequently charged crimes. The COVID has had effect on it, and I'll leave that to other scientists. I'm sure in the next 5 years, we're going to see so much data coming out on that, and we'll all learn, lessons learned. I think that, and let me backtrack a minute. When I'm talking about trespassing because there's insufficient housing, this is also an issue across our country. When I talk to other directors in other cities, big cities, little cities, everyone's looking, what can we do to address affordable housing? In Charleston County, every day you see something coming out of our county of trying to identify areas for affordable housing. That has an impact on our community. If people don't have a place to live, they're going to be out on the streets. If they're out on the streets, what's next?
To be continued. I know you have things to do, so I really do appreciate it. But Judge Ellen Steinberg with the CJCC, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Quintin, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks so very much. Take care of yourself.
Likewise.